A military aircraft just went down on my ranch. But instead of offering help, President Karen stormed over and called the authorities to have me arrested. She insisted I broke guidelines by allowing a military plane to make an emergency landing on my land. To her, the crash was less a disaster and more a golden ticket, a chance to seize my property. But when she interfered with the military's crash investigation, she unleashed something far bigger than she imagined. Federal agents got involved, and what they uncovered about Karen left the entire community stunned. Now, she's facing heavy federal penalties, and that's only the beginning. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was at my ranch on the outskirts of town. I own a local auto repair business and was working in my garage when I heard a thunderous noise overhead that didn't sound right. The noise intensified, became strained, and then came the crash. The force knocked tools from my bench and made the entire garage tremble. I ran outside and saw it. A massive C-130 Hercules military transport sprawled across my back pasture. Smoke curled from one of its engines as the crew evacuated. Military personnel were already arriving to take control. "Sir, step back," one of the officers told me. "This is now a secured federal site." I nodded, still stunned. But before I could even process what was happening, I heard that all too familiar, piercing voice. "Tom Harland, what did you do this time?" Karen Whitaker, 52 years old and president of our was marching up my driveway with 2 board members in tow. "This is absolutely outrageous. You're ruining the neighborhood. A plane just crash-landed here." "Karen, how is that my fault?" I asked, confused and frustrated. But she was already dialing the police. "I'm reporting a violation," she snapped. "This clearly breaks rules regarding aircraft on private property." She kept referring to it like it was just some hobby plane, completely ignoring the fact it was military. "Ma'am, this is a military emergency," an officer tried to clarify, but Karen brushed him off. "I don't care. This man is a danger to our community." Deputy Mike Torres arrived about 15 minutes later. "We've been friends since our school days." "What's going on?" he asked, staring at the wreckage. Karen wasted no time. "Arrest him. He's created a safety threat and broken multiple bylaws." Mike let out a sigh and rubbed his forehead, his usual reaction when dealing with Karen's antics. "This is obviously a military emergency," he said. "Tom had nothing to do with the crash." The officer backed him up. "Training incident, mechanical failure." "Mr. Harlan has been fully cooperative." But Karen wouldn't drop it. "This still falls under authority. Someone has to be held responsible." The officer's tone turned stern. "Ma'am, this is a federal investigation. You are going to have to leave." Karen shot me a look of pure venom. "This isn't over, Harland." That evening, my phone buzzed non-stop. Karen had blasted an email to the whole neighborhood titled "Urgent Safety Concern at Harland Ranch." She portrayed me as reckless and negligent, completely ignoring the fact this was a military incident beyond my control. She even called for an emergency meeting to discuss sanctions against me for endangering the community. By the next day, people were avoiding me. No greetings at the coffee shop, no small talk. Karen's smear campaign was working. I called Mike. "She's stirring up trouble everywhere. She even contacted the mayor," he said. "But the military's clear. You did nothing wrong." Still, I could tell Karen was plotting something bigger. She'd been eyeing my property for years, always dropping comments about how wasted the land was. Later that afternoon, I checked the crash zone. The military had set up proper fencing and stationed guards, but something felt off. There were fresh tire tracks that didn't belong to any of their vehicles. That evening, Karen appeared at my gate carrying official documents. "The board has voted to take action. You've created a public nuisance," she said, handing me papers. "A $5,000 fine for supposed infractions." "You can't fine me for an emergency military landing," I argued. Her cold smile didn't budge. "Section 23 states that property owners are responsible for all activity on their land. And this is only step 1, your ranch, your little garage. Soon, it's all going to be gone." I stared her down. "You're pushing this too far, Karen. You'll regret it." She laughed. "The only regret you'll have is when you're forced to sell. I've already got buyers interested." As she turned away, she added chillingly, "You'd better be careful around that crash site. We wouldn't want any accidents." Something in her tone made my skin crawl. She knew something is something she shouldn't. The next morning, Major Harrison from the Air Force Investigation Unit showed up at my door in full uniform. "Mr. Harland, we'll be conducting a full investigation over the coming days," she said. I offered her coffee, which she accepted. "Have your guards seen anyone trying to get into the crash area?" I asked. She frowned. "Actually, yes. Someone tried to bring in a civilian cleanup crew last night, claiming they had permission from the landowner. We stopped them." That confirmed my fears. "I didn't authorize anything." That was probably our Hope president, Karen Whitaker. Her eyes narrowed. "Any interference with a military crash site is a federal offense. If she's tampered with it, she could be facing serious charges." I called my neighbor Rusty Jenkins, a retired Air Force pilot in his 60s. "If Karen's meddling with that site, she's playing with fire," he said over coffee. "Those crash scenes are untouchable until the investigation's done." He added, "I've also heard she's been cozying up with some developer, one that's been scouting land around here." As evening set in, I stood by the fence, looking at the wrecked plane outlined against the setting sun. Karen thought she could bully me into selling, but she'd picked the wrong target. Mike texted me, "Karen's at City Hall claiming you're running an illegal airfield." I chuckled darkly. She had no clue she was messing with a federal investigation now. But I needed to know, what exactly had she done at the site? Had she really tampered with ITA, and if so, why? The next morning, Major Harrison's team was in full swing, cataloging every scrap of wreckage in the pasture. Around 9 a.m., she knocked on my door again, looking grim. "Mr. Harland, we need to talk." Our forensic team found clear signs of outside interference. Someone tried to move debris before we locked down the area. Major Harrison showed me pictures on her tablet. "These tire tracks don't match any of our vehicles," she said gravely. "This has now become a federal investigation for tampering with military property." I handed her a fresh cup of coffee carefully. "Major, our HO president made some odd remarks about the crash site yesterday. She seemed to have knowledge she shouldn't." Major Harrison leaned forward, intrigued. "Tell me everything." I laid out Karen's strange comments and the attempted civilian cleanup crew incident. Her face darkened. "If what you say is true, Miss Whitaker has committed serious federal offenses that carry heavy penalties." My phone rang. Sandra from my repair shop. "Tom, there's a city inspector here. He says we're violating zoning laws, something about military equipment making your property restricted." Apologizing to Major Harrison, I hurried to my shop. Sure enough, a nervous inspector was standing there, flanked by Karen in her designer outfit. "Oh, Tom," Karen cooed sweetly, "I'm just explaining your property's situation to Mr. Davidson." Davidson shifted uncomfortably. "We received a complaint alleging you're operating an illegal commercial airfield. The presence of that aircraft on your land violates several regulations." I stared, dumbfounded. "It crashed here. I didn't invite it." Karen smiled slyly. "Regardless, the law is clear about unauthorized airfields." I called Major Harrison immediately. She promised to contact city officials directly. Davidson looked relieved when he left, but once he was gone, Karen's facade crumbled. "You think you are clever, pulling in your military friends? I've protected this community for years. I won't let some grease monkey wreck it." Her calm shattered, revealing her true colors. That afternoon, an official letter arrived from a pricey law firm, demanding $75,000 for property value loss and emotional distress. It warned of immediate legal action. I was reading it for the third time when Rusty burst in urgently. "Tom, you have to see this." He spread documents on my desk. Karen had been pocketing consulting fees from Pinnacle Development for over a year. They specialize in converting rural land into dense housing developments. He showed me bank statements. She was funneling HO funds under the guise of community improvement consulting. Here's the kicker: Pinnacle has contracts with the military aerospace company responsible for maintaining C-130s. My mind raced. She must have known something about the crash beforehand. Rusty nodded. "Big coincidence. She had cleanup crews ready so quickly. Plus, she's mentioned your property to developers multiple times." He slid a memo across the table detailing acquisition strategies for my land. Pieces were falling into place. This wasn't just opportunism, it was a coordinated scheme. That evening, The emergency home meeting was packed. Karen stood at the podium like a general rallying her troops. "Friends, we face an unprecedented crisis. The Harland property incident has exposed us all to danger and legal liability." She clicked through slides showing property values and enhanced photos of the crash site. "Legal experts confirm we have grounds to take action." She motioned for a vote to force the sale of my property, with proceeds to cover community safety and legal fees. I stood up immediately. "You're asking for a vote based on lies. This was a confirmed military accident." Karen smiled patronizingly. "Mr. Harland, your property is a liability. Your unauthorized business, the excessive traffic, the blatant disregard for standards, it all ends now." I raised my voice so everyone could hear, then explain why cleanup crews were ready before the military secured the site. "And what about those payments from Pinnacle Development?" The atmosphere shifted instantly. Janet Williams spoke up. "Karen, what payments? The board deserves to know about any consulting fees." Karen faltered. "Those are legitimate payments for community work. Everything is documented." I pressed harder. "Really? Because Pinnacle's been trying to buy my land for months, and you've been helping them." Chaos erupted. Neighbors demanded answers. Karen slammed her gavel. "These are baseless accusations." But the doubt had been planted. The vote was postponed pending a financial review. As people left, Karen cornered me, hissing, "You've won nothing. I have resources you can't imagine. I will bury you." The next morning, my business took a hit. 3 regular customers canceled appointments. By noon, I'd lost a major fleet contract. Jim Patterson apologized. "The insurance company says your property situation is too risky." Karen was strangling my livelihood through her connections, but I wasn't giving up. I spent the afternoon gathering evidence with Rusty and Major Harrison. "Mr. Harland," Major Harrison said over the phone, "we found something interesting. The debris was selectively searched, like someone knew exactly what to look for. This goes beyond vandalism." That evening, working late, I heard noises outside. Through the window, I saw Karen with 2 unfamiliar men near the crash site fence. I grabbed my phone and started recording. "Access point should be here," one man said. "After military clearance, we begin environmental assessment." Karen replied, "Just make sure your report notes contamination, whatever it takes." I'd captured conspiracy in action. The next morning, I showed the video to Major Harrison and Mike. "She's planning false contamination claims," Mike said, shaking his head. "That's fraud and conspiracy." Major Harrison was blunt. "She's manipulating federal agencies for personal gain." "I'm escalating this to a criminal investigation." But Karen had another move. A process server arrived with a defamation lawsuit demanding $200,000. My lawyer, Ben Crawford, called right away. Their offer: drop everything if you sell to Pinnacle within 30 days. Pure extortion. I stood by my window watching military personnel work the crash site. "Sarah and I built our life here." Now, this power-hungry hoe president thought she could steal it through lies and threats. But she'd made one crucial mistake: interfering with the military. According to Major Harrison, that would be her downfall. The question was, how much damage would she do before that happened? Military floodlights bathed the site, casting harsh shadows over another night of investigation. I wondered what other moves Karen might have planned. At dawn, my kitchen became a war room. Rusty, Micaiah and Major Harrison gathered around the table, fueled by strong coffee and even stronger evidence. Bank statements, emails, recordings all spread out before us. "We know Karen's been taking money from Pinnacle, tampering with the crash site, and plotting fake environmental reports," I said as I shuffled papers. "How do we use this without letting her destroy my business first?" Major Harrison tapped her folder. "The contractor responsible for maintaining that crashed plane is under investigation for safety violations. 3C-130 failures in the past 18 months. Your plane had maintenance 2 weeks before the crash." If Karen got wind of these issues through Pinnacle, Mike whistled low. "That's accessory to endangering military personnel." Rusty added thoughtfully, "She's got the whole board in her pocket and is poisoning the community. We need to win public opinion first." My phone buzzed. "Sandra, more cancellations." My business was bleeding, but instead of despair, a cold resolve settled in. "Mike, Check for other complaints about Karen's financial dealings. Major, can you write a statement confirming I am cooperating fully? Rusty, dig deeper into Pinnacle's contractor ties. We had a plan. That afternoon's financial review meeting was my chance. I arrived early, armed with legal documents to share. The room filled fast. Word had spread about possible revelations. Karen entered with regal poise, surrounded by board members who looked less confident than usual. Robert Hayes, retired accountant and board member, called the meeting to order. Instead of Karen, "We're here for the financial review requested by the community." Karen tried to speak first. "We should address the Harland property situation." Robert cut her off. "Financial review first, Karen. That's the agenda." Her smile tightened as Robert began examining the books. Discrepancies surfaced quickly. "Karen, these consulting fees paid to you personally of $15,000 over 6 months. So where's the board approval?" She shifted uneasily. "Those were for extra community development work." I stood when recognized. "I have relevant information." I handed out Pinnacle development documents. "Miss Whitaker has been collaborating with developers trying to acquire neighborhood properties. These consulting fees match Pinnacle's payments exactly." The room erupted. Then I played the fence line video of Karen's voice recorded discussing fake contamination reports. The room fell silent. Janet Williams rose slowly. "Karen, you're planning fraud." The tide turned decisively. Board members questioned everything as Karen's facade crumbled. "You don't understand," she exploded. "This neighborhood was stagnating. I was bringing development and progress. That man's ranch is an eyesore." Robert's voice turned icy. "Through bribery and fraud." I motioned for an immediate no-confidence vote and forensic audit. The motion passed almost unanimously. Karen slipped out during the chaos. Phone pressed to her ear. The next morning brought vindication. Major Harrison called with crucial news. A Pinnacle subsidiary maintained the crashed aircraft and had been cutting corners. Several executives now faced federal investigations. "Your president appears throughout their communications," she said grimly. "She was promised $500,000 for delivering your property and 2 others. I felt sick." "She'd known about the danger all along," Major Harrison confirmed. "She knew about maintenance issues. Whether she expected a crash specifically, we can't say, but she was ready to capitalize. That cleanup crew would have planted contaminated soil." That afternoon, Karen made a desperate move. She arrived at my shop flanked by 2 high-powered lawyers. "Mr. Harland," one said smoothly, "our client will drop all legal actions and pay $50,000 if you agree not to pursue claims and sell to Pinnacle." I looked at Karen, who couldn't meet my eyes. "Your client attempted federal crimes. I think prosecutors will be very interested in this attempted bribe." They left quickly, but Karen spun around with rage. "You've ruined years of work." That evening, I sat on my porch with Rusty, Mike, and Major Harrison, sharing beers and watching the sunset. The crashed plane remained a lesser curse now, more a catalyst. I mused aloud. If she'd left me alone, she might have succeeded, but greed made her overreach. Major Harrison nodded. "The federal investigation is expanding. Similar schemes across 3 states. Your president was part of something much bigger." My caution had been justified. The next morning, my shop windows were spray-painted with words: "Liar, fraud, destroying our community." Security footage showed teenagers from Karen's loyal families doing the vandalism. She was using proxies now, but I could play that game too. I called a press conference, inviting local media to expose the corruption. The turnout was impressive. Major Harrison explained military findings. Mike detailed criminal investigations. Then I spoke. "For years, our president ruled by fear. She took bribes, plotted property theft, and endangered lives for profit. Today, that ends. Our community reclaims control from corruption." The story went viral locally within hours. Neighbors shared their own Karen horror stories. The forensic audit uncovered extensive embezzlement. That night, Karen called from an unknown number, sounding desperate. "Tom, please. I'll leave town, resign everything. Just stop the investigation. I have grandchildren." For a moment, I almost felt pity. Then I remembered her victims. "You tried to destroy my life and business. You endangered military personnel. You stole from neighbors. I can't stop federal investigations. Face the consequences of your choices." She hung up silently. The next morning, federal agents arrested Karen at her home. The neighborhood watched as she was led away in handcuffs. Some cheered, others stayed silent. The queen had fallen. Her yard already had a for sale sign trying to profit even in defeat. But this wasn't over. Major Harrison approached as the federal cars pulled away. "We need continued cooperation. This is bigger than just her." I nodded, knowing the real battle was just beginning. For now, my property was safe, my business would recover, and justice was underway. But what else would the federal investigation uncover? The next morning, I woke to find my repair shop's online reviews flooded with 1-star ratings. "A dangerous owner, unsafe location. This man destroyed our neighborhood. The attack was coordinated and ruthless." Karen had hired a professional PR firm to obliterate my reputation. Local news caught wind of the story. Ho president accuses local business owner of endangering community. A reporter interviewed Karen, who played the victim flawlessly, dabbing her eyes with a tissue as she claimed I had terrorized her while trying to protect the neighborhood. By noon, the damage was real. 3 regular customers canceled appointments, citing safety concerns. Sandra looked worried as she showed me the nearly empty appointment book for the coming week. "Tom, people are scared to come here. They think you are some kind of criminal." I felt the full weight of Karen's campaign crushing my business. $15,000 in contracts vanished in a single morning. At this rate, bankruptcy wasn't far off. Major Harrison called with disturbing news. "Tom, Karen Whitaker has been busy." She filed a formal complaint with my superiors, claiming our investigation is biased because of your influence. She's also been calling congressional offices, alleging military overreach and demanding a civilian review. The woman's audacity was limitless at trying to twist the narrative. Harrison's voice was grim. "There's more. Our intelligence indicates she's been in contact with Pinnacle's parent company. They're escalating their efforts." That afternoon, Karen showed up at the federal building where Major Harrison's team worked. I heard it later from Harrison herself. Karen demanded to speak with my commanding officer. When refused, she started recording video, claiming we were silencing a whistleblower. She threatened to take her evidence of military corruption to every media outlet in the country. The irony of Karen calling herself a whistleblower while actively corrupting everything she touched wasn't lost on anyone. But Karen's biggest mistake came when she confronted the military directly. 2 days later, she showed up at my property while Major Harrison was there for a routine update. Karen's usually flawless appearance was fraying, a hair slightly mussed, designer suit wrinkled. "You," she pointed a trembling finger at Harrison, "you are part of this conspiracy against me. I demand you recuse yourself from this sham investigation." Her voice had taken on a shrill, desperate edge. Major Harrison stayed calm and professional. "Ma'am, you need to leave. This is private property, and you're interfering with a federal investigation." But Karen wasn't backing down. She pulled out her phone and began a live stream. "This is Karen Whitaker, Ho president, being intimidated by military personnel who are exceeding their authority. This woman," as she pointed at Harrison Agena, "is colluding with Tom Harlins to destroy my reputation and steal my position." The situation escalated fast. Karen's rant grew more unhinged. "I have powerful friends of people in Washington who won't let this injustice stand. You're just a cog in the machine, Major. When my connections finish with you, you'll be lucky to guard a recruiting station." She turned to me, eyes blazing with hatred. "And you think you've won? I've been playing this game longer than you've been alive. By the time I'm done, you'll be begging to sell me that worthless ranch." Harrison calmly pulled out her radio. "I need civilian law enforcement at the Harland property. We have an individual interfering with a federal investigation and making threats." Within minutes, Mike arrived with a deputy. He surveyed the scene with weary familiarity. "Karen, what are you doing?" She turned on him like a rabid animal. "Of course you're here. You've always been in Tom's pocket. This whole town is corrupt, and I'm the only one brave enough to stand up to it." As Mike moved to escort her off the property, Karen completely lost control. "Don't you dare touch me. I'll sue everyone here. I'll own this town when I'm done." She jerked away from Mike, stumbling in her heels. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. The mayor listens to me. The city council does what I say. I am this community. But her power was evaporating like morning dew. Mike calmly handcuffed her and she screamed threats. The arrest made headlines. Ho president detained for threatening military officer. But even from jail, Karen kept fighting. Her lawyer held a press conference, claiming she was a political prisoner, persecuted for protecting her community. Richard Graves, her lawyer, presented carefully edited videos making Karen appear reasonable while painting others as aggressive. It was masterful manipulation, but the full videos told a very different story. That evening, I discovered just how deep Karen's reach still was. City inspector showed up at my shop, claiming multiple complaints about safety violations. They combed through everything, clearly searching for any reason to shut me down. Unable to find anything substantial, they cited me for a cracked bathroom tile and a dim light bulb in the storage room. Fix these within 24 hours or we'll close you down, the lead inspector said. Avoiding eye contact, I spent that night at my shop, desperately making repairs while my mind raced. Karen might be behind bars, but her influence was still poisoning my life. My phone rang constantly, reporters seeking statements, customers canceling appointments, and anonymous callers making threats. One message chilled me more than the rest. Karen has friends, powerful friends. Walk away while you still can. The stress was breaking me. At 3 a.m., I paced the empty shop, exhausted but unable to sleep. Looking at Sarah's photo on my desk, I slammed my fist on the workbench and shouted, "Enough, I've had enough." The sound echoed in the empty space. I was tired of being defensive, tired of reacting to Karen's moves. It was time to go on the offensive. But first, I needed to understand just how deep her connections went. The next morning, Rusty arrived with troubling news. "Tom, I've been monitoring communications between Pinnacle and their subsidiaries. Karen's name keeps coming up, but not just as a paid asset. She'd been feeding them intel on military movements for months. Every time a military aircraft flew overhead, she logged it. Every time military personnel visited the area, she reported it. Whether knowingly or not, she'd been gathering intelligence. This changed everything. I immediately reached out to Major Harrison and Patricia Mitchell. If Karen had been collecting information on military operations even unknowingly as she'd crossed into espionage territory. Mitchell's response was swift. "We're escalating this to a joint task force with the FBI. Karen Whitaker is now under investigation for potential violations of the Espionage Act." The Ho president who had terrorized a neighborhood for petty power had accidentally stepped into federal crimes that could land her in prison for life. But even as the federal probe intensified, Karen's shadow still haunted me. My business was barely surviving, my reputation lay in ruins, and strange surveillance vans had started appearing near my property. Mike confided that Karen had filed complaints trying to get him fired, accusing him of brutality during her arrest. She leveraged her connections on the city council to pressure the sheriff, he admitted quietly. I might lose my badge over this. That evening, standing alone in my empty shop, I realized Karen had been right about one thing. She did have powerful friends. The question was whether the federal government's case was stronger than her connections. Major Harrison assured me they were building an airtight case, but I couldn't shake the feeling Karen still had cards up her sleeve. The war between us was far from over and the stakes kept climbing. The federal courthouse was packed for Karen's preliminary hearing. I sat in the gallery, watching as she entered in an orange jumpsuit. For the first time, she looked her age, no designer clothes or perfect makeup to hide behind. But when her eyes met mine, the same malevolent energy flashed through them. Federal prosecutor Patricia Mitchell methodically laid out the charges: interference with a military investigation, attempted bribery, fraud, embezzlement, threatening federal officers, and now possible espionage. Karen's lawyer, Richard Graves, stood with a confident smile. "Your Honor, we intend to prove my client is the victim of an elaborate frame-up orchestrated by Mr. Harland and his military accomplices." He produced a tablet. "We have video evidence that will completely exonerate Mrs. Whitaker." The screen showed grainy footage of someone who looked like me at the crash site the night of the accident, apparently tampering with debris. My blood ran cold. I'd been at my shop all night, but the video looked convincing. Patricia Mitchell immediately objected. "Your Honor, This footage needs to be verified for authenticity. The judge agreed to admit it pending verification, but the damage was done. Reporters were already furiously texting. During recess, Mitchell pulled me aside. That video is fake, but it's sophisticated. Someone with serious resources is backing Karen's defense. I felt the walls closing in, between the doctored video and my ruined reputation. Who would believe the truth? Back in court, Karen took the stand. Her performance was masterful. Gone was the screaming woman from my property. Now she sat demurely, occasionally dabbing her eyes with a tissue as she portrayed herself as a dedicated community servant under persecution. "I've given 20 years of my life protecting our neighborhood," she said, voice breaking. "When I saw that crash, I knew Mr. Harland would try to use it for his own gain. All I did was try to protect my community, and now I'm being destroyed for it." The pressure on me intensified. Outside the courtroom that afternoon, Mike called with bad news. "Tom, Karen's lawyer filed a complaint with the sheriff's department. They're saying you've been using your friendship with me to manipulate the investigation. The sheriff wants me to recuse myself from anything involving you." I could hear the strain in his voice. "They're reviewing all my past reports involving Karen, suggesting I've been biased against her for years. I might lose my job over this." My shop was bleeding money faster than ever. The few customers who still showed up faced protesters. People Karen had convinced that I was the real threat to their neighborhood. They held signs reading, "Harland equals danger and protect our community." Sandra finally broke down in tears. "Tom, I need to find another job. My kids are getting bullied at school because I work for you." "I'm sorry." I couldn't blame her. Karen's campaign was destroying not just me, but everyone around me. That evening, Major Harrison visited with troubling news. "Our technical analysis confirms the video is a deepfake, but Karen's defense team has hired their own experts who claim it's authentic." She paused, studying my face. "This is going to come down to dueling experts, and juries don't always understand the technical details." She hesitated, then asked, "Tom, I need to ask any possibility you were at the crash site that night? Any chance you drove by to look?" The question stung, but I understood. Even Harrison was starting to doubt. "I was at my shop all night. I had security footage to prove it." When we checked my shop's security system, my heart sank. The footage from that night was corrupted, just static. "That's convenient," Harrison said quietly. I wanted to scream it was sabotage, but I could see doubt creeping into her eyes. A doubt was creeping. Things worsened when Karen's legal team presented their next piece of evidence. Financial records suggesting I'd received large sums from unknown sources in the weeks before the crash. The records were fragile but looked authentic enough. Mitchell pushed back, demanding time to verify, but the narrative was already taking hold. Tom Harland, a corrupt businessman, orchestrating a conspiracy to steal an elderly woman's position and ruin her life. That night, I sat alone in my empty house, staring at the mounting bills on my kitchen table. My business was dead, my reputation shattered. My friends were starting to doubt me. The phone rang again, another death threat, another angry neighbor, another reporter demanding comment on the shocking new allegations about my supposed crimes. I found myself staring at the blinking cursor in an unfinished email draft to my lawyer. Maybe it was time to give up, sell the property to whoever wanted Ida, and disappear. I walked out to the fence line, gazing at the spot where the plane had crashed. The military had cleared most of the wreckage, but the earth still bore the scars. In the distance, I saw lights from Karen's supporters holding a vigil outside her empty house, praying for her release. They saw her as a martyr, a brave woman standing up against corruption. The truth had been twisted so completely, I wondered if it even mattered anymore. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Give up now and we'll make it easy. Keep fighting and lose everything. Your choice." I stared at the message, feeling the weight of the threat. Whoever was backing Karen had resources I couldn't match. But standing there in the dark, I thought about Sarah. About the promise I'd made to protect our land. I thought about justice, about truth, about not letting bullies win. I deleted the message without replying. The next morning brought a new crisis. Patricia Mitchell called, her voice tense. "Tom, we have a problem. A witness has come forward claiming to have seen you at the crash site that night. They're providing detailed testimonial watching you move debris, taking photographs. My knees went weak. That's impossible. Who is this witness? Mitchell hesitated. Someone credible enough that we have to take it seriously. Tom, I need you to be completely honest. Is there anything you haven't told me? The betrayal stung. Even the prosecutor was beginning to doubt me. Patricia, I've told you everything. This witness is lying. Just like the video is fake and the financial records are fabricated. Can't you see what's happening? They're building a false narrative brick by brick. But I heard the uncertainty creeping into her voice. I believe you, Tom, but belief isn't enough. We need proof. And right now, they're doing a better job crafting their version of reality. Major Harrison arranged a meeting in a secure location. Her expression was grave as she laid out the situation. Tom, the investigation is at a crossroads. Karen's backers are throwing everything they have at this. We traced some of the money to offshore accounts, but the trail goes cold. Someone powerful wants you discredited and your property available. She leaned forward. We need to go on the offensive. Are you willing to take a risk? What kind of risk? I asked, though I already knew my answer. I had nothing left to lose. We want to arrange a meeting between you and Pinnacle's representatives. You'll wear a wire and pretend to negotiate selling your property. If we can get them on tape admitting to the conspiracy, it could change everything. It was dangerous. If they suspected a setup, I could end up like the debris in that field, scattered and broken. But what choice did I have? That night, I sat at my kitchen table writing a letter to Sarah's sister in case something went wrong. Outside, I could see surveillance vehicles no longer bothering to hide. Karen might be in jail, but her puppeteers were still pulling strings. Tomorrow, Mitchell would announce whether the video evidence was admissible. If it was, my credibility would be completely destroyed. The meeting with Pinnacle was scheduled for the next night. One way or another, this would end soon. I pulled out the photo of Sarah I always kept with me. I'm trying, honey, I whispered. I'm trying to do the right thing. But as I looked around my empty house, my dying business, the life Karen and her backers were systematically destroying, I wondered if doing the right thing was enough. Sometimes, the bad guys had better resources, better plans, and better lies. Sometimes David faces Goliath and loses. Tomorrow would tell which story this was. The courtroom was tense as Karen's lawyer prepared to present his final piece of evidence. Your Honor, we have video footage that proves beyond any doubt Mr. Harlan has been lying to this court. The screen showed what appeared to be me meeting suspicious individuals near the crash site, exchanging envelopes, shaking hands. The quality was better than the previous video. The details sharper. Even I had to admit it looked damning, though I knew it was fake. But Patricia Mitchell was ready. Your Honor, we'd like to present our witness. The courtroom doors opened and in walked someone I didn't expect. Danny Morrison, a technician from the military contractor servicing the crashed plane. He looked nervous but determined. Karen's face went pale when she saw him. This wasn't part of her plan. Danny took the stand. After being sworn in, Mitchell began her questioning. Mr. Morrison, tell the court about your relationship with the defendant, Karen Whitaker. Danny's voice was steady despite obvious nerves. I was approached by Mrs. Whitaker 6 months ago. She said she represented community interests and wanted to know about military flight patterns for safety reasons. She offered me $5,000 for information. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Karen shook her head frantically, but her lawyer looked worried. Danny continued, I needed the money for my daughter's medical bills, so I agreed. But I only gave her public information and nothing classified. What happened next? Mitchell prompted. Danny glanced at Karen, then looked away. She kept pushing for more. Maintenance schedules, problem reports, anything about planes that might have issues. She said it was to keep the community safe. But then she started asking specifically about emergency. She kept pressing for details about emergency landing procedures and which properties lay beneath flight paths. Karen paid me an additional $10,000 for a list of planes flagged with maintenance problems. The courtroom erupted at this revelation. Mitchell presented bank records showing payments made directly from Karen's personal account to Danny Morrison. But the real bombshell came next. Mr. Morrison, did Mrs. Whitaker ever mention Tom Harlan's property specifically? Danny nodded repeatedly. She was obsessed with it, said it was perfectly positioned and could be worth millions to the right buyer. She asked if any troubled planes regularly flew over that area. Karen shot to her feet, furious. That's a lie. Tom Harland paid him to say this. The judge slammed his gavel, ordering her to sit. Her lawyer tried to object, but Mitchell pressed on. Did Mrs. Whitaker know about the mechanical issues with the plane that crashed? Danny's answer was devastating. Yes, I told her a specific plane had been flagged for fuel system problems. She seemed very interested in that information. The prosecutor then revealed that the investigation had uncovered even more. Karen hadn't just been paying Danny, she'd been gathering intel from multiple sources, building a database of military vulnerabilities. Her connection to Pinnacle Development went far beyond simple bribery. She was being paid specifically to identify and acquire properties useful for intelligence gathering. The crashed plane had been an opportunity she couldn't resist. But Karen wasn't finished fighting. During cross-examination, Graves attacked Danny's credibility, highlighting his financial struggles and suggesting he'd say anything for money. The tactic might have worked except Mitchell had a surprise. Your Honor, we'd like to present additional evidence discovered just this morning. She produced a laptop. This computer was recovered from a storage unit rented by Mrs. Whitaker. Our forensics team recovered deleted files. The files were damning. Emails between Karen and Pinnacle executives discussing the Harland acquisition, spreadsheets tracking military flights over my property, and most shocking, a document titled Contingency Plans. It outlined various strategies to force me to sell, including environmental contamination, legal pressure, and reputational destruction. The date on the document was 2 weeks before the plane crash. Karen's lawyer made a desperate final objection. Your Honor, this evidence was obtained without a proper warrant. But Mitchell had anticipated this. The storage unit was rented under the Ho's name, making it commercial property. Mrs. Whitaker, as president, used Ho funds to pay for it. The board gave us permission to search all Ho properties. The judge admitted the evidence. Karen's fate was sealed as the full extent of her crimes became clear. Her composure finally shattered. You don't understand, she screamed. I was protecting our community. Tom Harland's property is a danger to every any of the military traffic. Those plain as someone had to do something. She turned toward the gallery, appealing to her supporters. I did this for you, all of you, to keep your children safe. But even her most loyal followers looked shaken by the revelations. The judge called a recess to review the evidence. In the hallway, Karen's daughter approached me, tears streaming down her face. Is it true? Did my mother really? Did she know that plane might crash? I didn't know how to respond. The truth was complicated. Karen likely hadn't expected an actual crash, only the threat of Onya, but her greed blinded her to the danger she was creating. Your mother made choices, I said finally. Wrong choices, but I don't think she meant for anyone to get hurt. When court reconvened, more evidence surfaced. The deepfake videos of me had been created by a company hired by Pinnacle. The financial records were forgeries. The witness who claimed to have seen me at the crash site was a Pinnacle employee. Every piece of evidence against me had been fabricated as part of Karen's plan to destroy my reputation. The investigation also revealed Karen had been embezzling from the Ho for years, using the funds to bankroll her intelligence operation. But the most shocking revelation came from Major Harrison's testimony. Our investigation determined Mrs. Whitaker's actions potentially compromised national security. The information she gathered and sold could have been used to target military aircraft. While she may not have intended espionage, her greed created vulnerabilities hostile actors could exploit. Terrorism and espionage charges were added to Karen's growing list of crimes. Her final attempt at defense was pitiful. Against her lawyer's advice, she took the stand, weeping as she painted herself as a patriotic American who only wanted to protect her community. But Mitchell's cross-examination was ruthless, dismantling every lie. Confronted with evidence of her payments from Pinnacle, Karen claimed she believed they were legitimate consulting fees. When shown her detailed notes on military aircraft vulnerabilities, she insisted she was just a concerned citizen. The jury didn't buy it. After just 3 hours of deliberation, they returned guilty verdicts on all counts: conspiracy, fraud, embezzlement, bribery, interfering with a federal investigation, and attempted espionage. The judge, noting the severity of her crimes and the threat to national security, sentenced Karen to 25 years in federal prison. As the bailiffs led her away, Karen glared at me one last time. "This isn't over, Harland. You'll pay for this." Her threat now rang hollow. In the aftermath, the full conspiracy unraveled. Pinnacle Development was shut down, and its executives arrested. The military contractor lost its contracts and faced massive fines. Danny Morrison, who had cooperated fully, received probation and helped identify other compromised personnel. The Ho elected. New leadership was elected to the Ho, and strict financial controls were put in place. My reputation gradually restored, and my business began to recover as neighbors came forward to apologize for having believed Karen's lies. But the real triumph came a month later when the military held a ceremony on my property. They presented me with a civilian commendation for helping expose a major security threat. Major Harrison shook my hand and said, "Your persistence, even in the face of personal ruin, helped protect countless military personnel." Thank you. Standing there, gazing at the spot where the plane had crashed, I reflected on how a simple mechanical failure had uncovered a sprawling web of corruption and greed. Karen Whitaker had spent years building her petty kingdom, ruling through fear and manipulation. Her greed had led her to betray not only her neighbors but also her country. Now, she would spend decades in federal prison, her legacy one of shame and betrayal. The Queen of the Ho had fallen not by the military or federal agents, but by her own insatiable thirst for power and money. Justice, though delayed and hard-fought, had finally been served. The federal courthouse was packed for Karen's final sentencing. I watched as she entered in shackles, her flawless facade completely shattered. The judge's voice was firm as he delivered the verdict. "Karen Whitaker, you are fined $150,000 for interfering with a military crash site and accepting bribes. You are immediately removed as Ho president. Additionally, you will serve 25 years in federal prison for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted espionage." Karen collapsed into her chair, crushed beneath the weight of her crimes. The military contractor involved was banned from all government contracts and hit with multi-million-dollar fines. As Karen was led away, she glanced at me one last time, a hatred replaced by defeat. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but all I wanted was to go home. The crashed plane had been removed from my property weeks ago, leaving only healing scars on the land. That evening, I decided to host a barbecue at my ranch, something I hadn't done since Sarah passed. I invited Major Harrison, Rusty, Mike, and the neighbors who had stood by me through it all. As the sun set, people began arriving, some hesitant, embarrassed for having believed Karen's lies. Mrs. Patterson approached, tears in her eyes. "Tom, I'm so sorry. We should have known better. You've always been a good neighbor. We let her poison our minds." I accepted her apology with grace. The barbecue turned into a celebration of freedom. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years laughed together, finally free from Karen's divisive grip. Our community was healing. During the gathering, Major Harrison pulled me aside with important news. "Tom, I need to tell you something. During the investigation, Karen tried to bribe me with $50,000 to alter my testimony. She was desperate to avoid prison." The revelation didn't surprise me. Karen had been corrupt to her core. I raised my beer bottle and called out to everyone, "To justice." The crowd echoed my toast, and for the first time in over a year, our neighborhood felt like a true community again. 3 days later, Karen made one final manipulation attempt. She arranged for a public statement to be read at the next home meeting, apologizing for her actions and asking for forgiveness. Janet Williams, the new Hope president, read the statement aloud, but the room remained silent. When she finished, old Mr. Henderson spoke for everyone. Too little, too late. The community had moved on. Karen's reign of terror was over, and her last plea for sympathy fell on deaf ears. That night, she was transferred to federal prison. Within a week, Karen quietly left the neighborhood. Her house went up for sale, and a moving truck appeared in the dead of night. No one said goodbye. No one watched her leave. The woman who had controlled every aspect of our lives for years simply vanished like a bad dream. Her departure was as hollow as her leadership had been. The next morning, Children played freely in yards where they'd once been cited for noise violations. People painted their doors colors other than beige. Life returned. In the following weeks, I focused on rebuilding my auto repair shop. Customers came back with apologies and support. My buzziness, which Karen nearly destroyed, began to thrive again. One morning, while cleaning out my garage, I found something that made me stop cold. Hidden behind some old boxes was a small metal sign that read simply, "You won, Tom." It was in Karen's handwriting. She must have placed it there during one of her inspections. I stared at it for a moment, then tossed it in the trash where it belonged. 6 months passed peacefully. I transformed my property, creating a community garden where neighbors could grow vegetables together. The spot where the plane crashed became a symbol of renewal instead of conflict. One evening, while tending to the tomatoes, I heard the familiar sound of military aircraft overhead. A C-130A just like the one that crashed flew past on a training mission. I looked up and muttered with a grin, "Don't even think about landing here again." The irony wasn't lost on me. The transformation of our neighborhood was remarkable. Without Karen's oppressive rules, property values actually increased. People took pride in their homes again. The Ho focused on real issues: road maintenance, community events instead of measuring grass height. Janet Williams proved to be everything Karen was not: fair, transparent, and genuinely interested in serving the community. Democracy had replaced dictatorship, and everyone benefited. At the one-year anniversary of the plane crash, I hosted another barbecue. This time, the entire neighborhood came. We set up tables right on the spot where the C-130 had crashed, turning a place of chaos into one of celebration. Patricia Mitchell attended and shared some news. "Tom, your case has led to reforms in Ho governance across the state." The Whitaker case is now taught as an example of corruption in law schools. It was strange to think our local drama had such far-reaching impact. As the party wound down, I stood alone, looking at my land. The scars were gone, replaced by green grass and thriving gardens. My phone buzzed with a message from Mike. Heard from a contact that Karen's doing laundry duty in prison. Says she complains constantly about the cheap detergent. I chuckled at the karma. The woman who had obsessed over appearances was now washing prison uniforms. Justice had a sense of humor. That night, after everyone left, I sat on my porch with a beer, finally at peace. My land was safe. My business was recovered. My community was free. The narrator in my head spoke with satisfaction. Karen thought she could control everything, even the military. Big mistake. She forgot corruption always leaves tracks, and those tracks led straight to federal prison. I smiled at the thought. Sometimes, the good guys do win. As I headed inside, one last military transport flew overhead, its lights blinking in the darkness. "Safe travels," I called out, then laughed at myself. What a journey it had been from a crashed plane to exposed corruption to federal trials. But it was over now. Karen would spend decades behind bars, and we could all live freely. Still, questions lingered for anyone watching this story. What would Karen do after prison? Would other corrupt Ho presidents learn from her mistakes? And most importantly, what dish should I prepare for next year's Freedom from Tyranny barbecue? The future was brighter with endless possibilities.